Hello, VAs. This is Christina Osborne. Earlier, I did a live masterclass on the second week, and the topic was Systemization 101. One of the VAs who attended the session asked me a question which identified that I did not fully cover all the topics that I wanted you guys to learn, that there will be a gap in your knowledge and specifically implementation of the topic. And therefore, I am recording this supplementary video to fill that gap. Hopefully there should be no confusion in terms of what you need to do as a VA when you start working for a property investor. Great, so let's begin. This was the topic, week 2, 13th of January, we covered systems. And Systemization 101 had 3 subtopics: basics of systemization, 3 parts of systemization, and systems for VAs. It's the third topic in particular that I want to cover and discuss. Okay, specifically, I talked about the must-dos, okay? And this is when I realized that in the must-dos that I covered in general terms what you must do, but I did not spell out exactly what needs to be done. Hence, there's additional content, which is under this. Each of your VA workspace page on Notion currently only has the must do. I've asked Angela to update all of your notes on Notion so that you have this new and additional content, okay, the exact steps and what you need to do. So we've got here, just to recap, that you need to do 2 things when you start working for your client, okay? And I want to be very clear about this, that although this would be my system, if you feel that you don't see the sense in doing this, that's also absolutely fine by me, but you cannot find work through the Property VA's recruitment drive if you don't agree with this system, because this is how I do my work, and therefore I'd like you to follow this process. If you watch the main live masterclass video, I explain in detail why you should do these steps, okay? So the first step is that you need to create a default diary. After you create a default diary, which will contain the tasks that you'll be carrying out for your respective clients, that's when you create an SOP. Okay. Now, if you expand the toggle, it will tell you in super clear details exactly what you need to do. There is step 1, here is step 2, step 3, and 4. So step 1, these are all the questions that you need to ask your client. Ask what your daily tasks are. Ask what's this? What would your daily tasks be? Oh my God, I forgot to type that in. Ask what your daily tasks would be, then you enumerate that. Then ask if these tasks why am I not typing in B? Oh my God. Ask if these tasks need to be carried out at specific times or if you can be flexible. Ask when each task needs to be completed by, or when you need to stop. That is to say, sometimes it's like an ongoing forever task, and that you should know when you should stop doing that task, because there is no indication that you need to stop. So it could be that for task A, you stop after 2 hours and continue the next day, okay? But you need to ask that, you need to know that. You cannot create your default diary if you don't ask these questions. That's why, for me, when I realized that I've not actually detailed this bit, that I leave it open for interpretation for you guys. So I don't want any interpretation. This is the exact step that I want you to do, okay? Number 4, ask what your weekly, but not daily tasks are. Sometimes you won't have a weekly task, okay? What's the difference? Daily is, as it implies, or not even implies, as it states, that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, daily task. It doesn't change. Today and tomorrow and Friday and Wednesday is exactly the same. Okay. Whereas weekly tasks are less frequent than daily tasks, but they should still be a default. That would be, let's say every Mondays, you need to do bookkeeping. Every Fridays, you need to send out letter campaigns. Every Thursdays, you need to check on Facebook or whatever it is, okay? So ask. And then ask what days the weekly tasks need to be performed. Okay, ask if client would like to reserve a block of time for ad hoc tasks. This is generally daily because ad hoc tasks are unexpected one-off tasks. So it would be a good idea to have a block of time reserved for ad hoc tasks. And then how long that block of time should be. This is up to you and your client. Sometimes that can be 30 minutes. Sometimes that can be 1 hour. But the important thing to consider is that if you do not allow for ad hoc tasks, it means that if your client does need you to work on an ad hoc task and you don't have either a room for it or enough room for it, let's say you've only allowed 30 minutes of ad hoc tasks, then it does mean that whatever your tasks are that are default for that day will need to be bumped over onto either the next day or the next week if that is a weekly task. Okay, so now that you've got these information, you can start to create your default diary. Okay, wherever you want to create your diary, on paper, on Notion, that's entirely up to you. That's your choice. I do recommend that you do it on Notion so that you can invite your client, okay, to look at your default diary. And also it means that you can easily revise this if need be. I do say that although it's a default, it means you repeat it day in, day out, or on a weekly or monthly basis. It doesn't mean it's permanent, okay? It means that it's the default for now until you, that's step 3, until you test, measure, and adjust. All right, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to step 2. What's in a diary? It's what a diary looks like. You've got a day, you've got time, you've got the task at hand, and then max hours to spend on task. I've created this as a simple block on Notion. How do you do simple block? / and simple table block. Let's type in table. You've got the option to create a database table or a simple table, right? This is the option that I've chosen. Not to say that you shouldn't use the more complex database table. That's entirely up for you to decide on that one. But for this exercise, just so I can show you what a default diary can look like, not to say should look like, but at least can look like, then this is a very quick way to demonstrate that, to illustrate that to you. So we've got here the day. This can be Monday to Friday, so every day, or this can be just Mondays, or this can be Mondays, but then this one is AM, and this one's Monday, but that is PM, or that this is Monday to Friday, but flexible. And then these are Mondays to Fridays, but specific times as well. So all these questions that you asked will help you design and work out how to create a default diary. What should be in this column would be the name of the task. For example, inbox management, Facebook comments, sending out emails, sending out letters, doing data scraping, whatever the task is, each and every individual task is written down here. Now, what does that mean? Down here, you've got total hours. Why is this important? It helps you and your client visually see when what she or he is asking for, your client, is impossible. Because if you're hired to work 4 hours a day, and then you can visually see here that you will go over 4 hours a day, then that is an indication that you and your client need to go back to this step 1 and say, you know, does he or she need to hire you for longer hours? Does the client need to hire another VA? Does a client need to compartmentalize some of these processes? You know, is it really a good idea that you are looking after sales and marketing and admin and bookkeeping? Okay. Maybe you're not aware of it, but having clearly mapped everything out on a default diary, you can see that you are taking on too much work. Then it's a conversation you need to have with your client. Okay? Maximum hours to spend on task. This is crucial for your clients, for example, so that they know that you are not spending too much time on tasks that are of less priority to the client, okay? Or that the client knows, or they have an idea, I've done this task before, it should not take you longer than 30 minutes, for example. It means you as a VA are aware that your clients expect you to take no more than 30 minutes to finish a task, and therefore you perform your task as your client expects. And if you do not finish within 30 minutes, then you have a basis of going back to your client and say, I stopped at 30 minutes because this is the allowed time, but I want to let you know that I wasn't actually able to finish 30 minutes because so and so and so and so. Those are things that your client may not have been aware, that either you had difficulty or you lacked training or that you needed resources that she didn't provide, whatever the reasons might be. Okay, so all of this is good for feedback between you and your client. Again, why are we doing this? We are doing this because we want to make the client's experience working with a VA trained by myself, taught to know about my systems, that all of this experience is one of professionalism and one of just fantastic working experience between you and your client. Okay, there we go. Step 3, present to client. So even though you discuss this together, it's still up to you to create this table. You know, you present it to your client and your client says, looks good. Or maybe the client says, oh, do you think you can change whatever it is that she wants you to change? So step 3 is like your checklist. And then finally, once it's approved, go and use it, go and test it for a week, test it for a month. Use it until something changes. Let's say your client requires more hours for doing X number of tasks. So they know that you're not physically able to take on any more work, as can be demonstrated in your default diary. Therefore, your client might decide to hire additional VAs. When that happens, then obviously you're going to need to change your default diary. So once you need to adjust something, then it's the same process. You go back to step 1. You may need to skip some of this, especially if you're not going to change the whole thing. you're just going to change some of it, then therefore, you may not need to entirely work from scratch. Okay, so that's step 1, 2, 3. And then finally, client approves. And congratulations, you have a default diary. Now you may be asking, Christina, how long does this take? And do I do this while doing work? To the second question, most likely, yes. You are essentially, your client has immediate and urgent tasks that need looking after before you even create an SOP. That's fine. We're not robots. Do that, okay? But also at the same time, for sure that until you create a default diary and you create an SOP, that you and your clients can be, what's the term? Can be pushed around by whatever happens, by new triggers in the business, an email, a client, a Zoom, all of these. If it's not mapped out, it means that you don't have a program that you and your client follow, which means that anything can happen. And so it leads to quite a frustrating experience for you as a VA. It will not be a nice organized experience working for a client who doesn't have a system for you to follow. Okay, and for the clients, it's nice for the client to just always be disorganized and no one's there to help him or her. Okay, so that's your default diary. Step 2 is create an SOP for each of the default tasks. So you've got here task 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. Each of these tasks, let's say that's emails, and this is Facebook, and that is data scraping, or whatever it is. You then create an SOP for each task, right? So step 1, 2, there are 2 steps here and a couple of notes. Step 1, discuss with your client that you will be creating an SOP for each task. This is important because I described earlier that you might need to be doing urgent tasks at the same time as creating an SOP, okay? Your client needs you to send this today. This is like your Monday, your day 1. That's great. Just get the task done, but also to communicate clearly to your client that your ultimate goal to help your client is to be able to create an SOP. And that SOP is something that's externalized from what's going on in his or her head and what's going on in your head as well, carrying out tasks. And instead, this is communicated externally for everyone to utilize and refer to on how to do things properly for each of the tasks that's on your default diary. Okay. So that's step 1, discuss with your client. Step 2 is you can use the framework below for creating the SOP. Now, either you create your own, and I'm simply just guiding you here, or you use and modify the simple one that I created below, okay? Note if you want to use your own, or even if you want to just modify what I've created now, at the bottom, do remember the trigger, action, outcome principle, okay? Or method to guide you in creating an SOP. What is the trigger? What action do you need to take? How do you know if you've resolved the situation? There. And then use the elements of systemization to help you in designing the SOP. These are instructions, checklists, and templates. Okay. You don't always need to have templates for each task. For emails, for example, yes, you definitely need templates. But let's say that task is I don't know, data scraping addresses from an online directory. Okay, that is a task that can have an SOP created for it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have a template for that specific task. You might need checklists, yes, and you might need instructions, but maybe not necessarily templates, okay? But these are the tools for you to remember so that you can utilize if needed. Okay, so that's step 1 and 2. Now here's the actual framework. Again, you're invited to copy, but you're also invited to modify. So note, you may need to redesign this framework completely. And good tip, duplicate the table before typing. Okay, duplicate this so that you know that you've always got the original to refer to. Extra tip, you can recreate the table below from scratch. That will be a really useful exercise so that you get to practice designing and creating tables on Notion. Okay, so I put in here SOP4, and then you replace this with the task name. So this could be SOP for email replies. Okay, the table that I created has this sections or features. This is my own design. You can copy, you can modify, or for a specific task that you've got, you may say, this doesn't apply, I'll do it my own way. Feel free to do that, okay? The important thing is that these are the 2 steps that you must do. Create a default diary and create an SOP. How you create the default diary, how you create and design the SOP will obviously be from your own intelligence in terms of, okay, my client needs this is how it's going to work, not the way Christina did it. Fine by me, okay? So here we are. The design, how I designed this is that I created a column for checklists so that I know that it's been completed. There are, I just want to show this to you. Okay. For example, can you see here that whenever I create a table on Notion, I always have the first column as checklists. If I go to, let me close that. If I go to the VA workspaces, I have checklists again. Okay, it's a very visual indication that something has been completed or looked at or looked after. So that's why I like always designing things with the first column as a checklist. This is when you create a table on Notion, this is the default table that it will show you. There's no checklist there. I'll show you how to do that, okay? Then you've got here a simple type in text column. Okay, so what is the trigger? That can be the subject. Okay. And then what must be the action? You can have several columns for the action. By the way, guys, I just simply moved the width of the column very tightly and closely, just so I don't have to scroll left and right too much. Feel free to expand this as needed. Okay. This action column, again, I said you may need several action columns here according to the SOP that you are designing for. You do that, okay? How do you multiply or duplicate columns? You can right click and duplicate. So you've got action 0 and action 1. Just rename. Okay, action A, action B, or first step, second step. That's entirely up to you. In fact, you don't even need to call this trigger. You can call that email subject. because that is the trigger, the subject of the email. Okay. And then down here, you've got on Notion, this is an openable column. This will always be an openable column, and it's the first column here. Okay. By default, it's the first one that comes out. Let me, what am I doing? I think I don't want to confuse you yet, but I just want to say that if you do this by default, it's actually the first column to the left. Okay. Right. So let's just go back to the one that I designed, SOP. You've got here another column that's called file. I've only inserted this so that in case you need to, for this SOP, for the SOP that you're designing for, if you need the ability to upload files for that step, let's say the action requires that you send the email with an attachment. That could be the brochure, that could be an image, that can be a voice file, whatever it is, then you may want to upload this into the SOP as standard so that whoever's doing this task knows that this is the file that needs to be uploaded along with the message. Or if this is an SOP for data scraping, this is the spreadsheet that you need to utilize in order to capture all the data that you're scraping and entering it onto a uniform spreadsheet. Okay. And finally, I have a column here that says assign. When you click on this, you're able to find all the people that you can tag in this task, in this column. Okay. So this is the framework that I've designed. You may copy, or you can modify, or you can create your own. If you want to create your own, that's what I'm going to show you right now. Let's just delete this again because I want to take it from step 1. Okay. Okay, how do you enter and create tables? You either do / and type in table, and you click on the database, or you use these dots. They're very faint, they're very light. If you click on that, you can then say turn into. Okay, I can't quite see. Sorry guys, I don't think you can do it in this way. So simply just type in / and then if you start spelling table, then it will show you all the options where it actually says table. Okay. There we go. So by default, as described earlier, this is what a table looks like. And this is where you start designing your SOP. So we can type here the name of the SOP, SOP for data scraping. To rename the header, just click on the header and then type and rename the title. This can be, for example, instructions. And then let's say you want to rename this as, let's say, file. Okay. I rename that as file, and I want to be able to upload files. So just move your your mouse down here, and then change this property type into any one of these options. Files, I want to change that into date. You can see that that just says column because I didn't rename it. If I rename that date or schedule, by default, it just says column. Type here, I want to assign that. I can rename that later. Type here, I want to do a checkbox. If I want to move the checkbox to the front, I click and drag. And then say I'm happy with this. I want to rename. I'll say sent. Okay. I want to call this project head. Okay. Let's say I want to be able to create tags for any of these entries. I can do that by clicking on here and then choosing either a single select or a multi-select. I'll show you what the difference is. So select, I'll just rename that. I'll call that tags, for example. Or maybe I'll call that departments. Okay. And this might be sales department. This might be marketing. This might be admin. So as you can see here, I'm able to choose by whatever entry that I create here and then creating tags for it. Okay, selected properties. I can only select once because this column is designed to be a single select column. Now, if I want this to be a multi-select column, I simply I click on the header, scroll down to property type. This thing will open up and I'm going to choose multi-select. Now that it's multi-select, I can select more than one. So let's say this task can be assigned to marketing and sales. This task is sales and admin. This task is admin and marketing. Can you change these colors? Yes, you can. I can change that into orange. I can change this into blue. Okay, so all sorts of variety in designing your SOP. You can do this on Notion. Okay. Do you need to design it this way? Not necessarily. I'm just showing you all the options. Notion's table is not meant to replace spreadsheets, okay, because Notion cannot do all of the calculations here. What calculations can it do? It can count entries. So for example, count all. There are 3 entries. I've not even typed anything there, but it says that I've got 3 rows. Now, if I click on one and I say count checked, so it can do simple calculations like that. Okay, apparently it can also do some formulas, but I haven't found out how to do it. Yes, that's something for me to learn, but I don't see the need for that at the moment because I've got spreadsheets, Excel, Google Sheets, and that's sufficient for me for the time being. Okay, what else can we do with this? We can duplicate this. And this would be good if, let's say, you've got an SOP for kind of similar tasks, SOP for emails and SOPs for WhatsApp messaging, for example. Then all you need to do is change the actual entry, but the all these properties might remain the same. So instead of you recreating that, you simply then just duplicate. You can also click on here to duplicate. Okay. Other thing is that you can export, you can group, turn into page, play around with it, guys. All right. This is for you to use as simply as possible and as complicated as possible. Okay, as you'd like it to be, that is. Okay, I can delete this now, as well as this. Okay. By the way, you can turn this into a page. What happens if you do that? It becomes not the table, but a clickable page. Where is your table? Your table is now inside. Okay. So let me just delete that, guys. And that's it. So this is the additional content that I felt was necessary to record and share with everyone. So earlier we just covered the must do. Now there's this additional content, which is the actual steps. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope to see you next Thursday for lesson number 3, which is, let's go back here, week and topic. Ooh, exciting. This one is now specific lessons, specific skills for property investing, okay, for VAs. Thank you so much. I shall see you next week. Bye.